Okay, I'm with Dr. Weissling today, and Dr. Weissling is the director of the Distance Master's degree program at the University of Nebraska Department of Entomology, which a few of you in the class are actually in this program. Dr. Weissling has graciously donated some of his time to talk to us about
sort of 5 minutes.
Oh yeah, 5 minutes. There's no 5-minute talks, but anyway, Tom is definitely taking his time with us today to go over some of the questions about sort of managing distance programs. And so I've kind of shared some of your credentials with the class in the discussion board where they post the questions, and most of the students have posted questions there, and you've had time to preview them.
Yes.
So, Tom, didn't you want to share with your background in terms of this job and maybe what you did prior in terms of how that relates to sort of distance teaching and program development?
Yeah, certainly, because my background is not in education at all.
Mm-hmm.
Like most of us, I'm a PhD that came up through research. So research doesn't really prepare as much in the teaching realm, which is why maybe some of your college instructors appear to be just a little bit lacking affect. Wow, what happened?
Well, just mess with like...
Oh, I need my sunglasses. That was great. So my background really is it's totally entomology. Bachelor's and master's at Colorado State University, PhD here at the University of Nebraska. I left here 1990, did my first postdoctoral experience, which was research on palm weevils. Did that for a few years up to Yakima, Washington, where I did research on pest of apples, primarily codling moth. And then back to University of Florida, where I had my first university job at Field Station, Fort Lauderdale, and started teaching classes. And it was face-to-face for a commuter crowd, so we did evening classes and sometimes Saturdays. And then left there, went to the USDA for a few years, working on invasive insects, research again. Then came to the University of Nebraska, where I did research on soybean rust for a few years. And then I got this job, which was coordinating the online master's degree program. So it involves not only the coordination of this degree, it involves advising all the students, and it involves teaching in the program. In the past few years, I've expanded out and started doing some more undergraduate education, as well as continuing on with our online graduate degree.
So, Tom, how many years have you been in this role now? Has it been 8, 9?
It'll be 9 years in July, which I've never been anywhere 9 years in my life.
Okay.
So it's a big milestone.
Wow, didn't realize that. That means you're getting old. Okay, let's move on from that subject.
Okay.
But anyway,
yeah.
Tom has a lot of experience, and so we're very thankful that he's able to share this with us. And you can tell Tom and I get along pretty well and joke around because we are pretty comfortable, so hopefully we'll keep this as professional as possible today. But and he's got 2 pairs of glasses, and I asked him about it, and apparently he doesn't want to do bifocals yet. But we'll move on from that. But, you have about 210 students, 150 active students or thereabouts in the master's program. I mean, that's a guesstimate, but a pretty high number of students in a master's program. A little bit lower, but one of the questions that ties into that I think we'll cover first here is, with a large program like this, how do you build a sense of community or keep a sense of community with so many students involved in this program in different aspects, different ways in this program?
I'm not sure that we've created that yet. It's certainly been a goal. We've talked quite a bit about it. We've looked at different ways of promoting it that we haven't implemented real well. But I think students themselves tend to create a little bit of a sense of community with their involvement. But certainly, I think there are great ways to do it that we haven't figured out yet. But I'm hoping we can. I know it is very important that students feel that they can come to their instructors and to their advisor. And I try to maintain constant email contact, or I can be reached by text as well. I do that as an instructor primarily. But I think really the sense of community be created by rapidly responding to students. Now, it hasn't been a good year for me to do that so far this year. It's been I'm a little behind in emails. Sorry if you've emailed me, I haven't gotten hold of you back to you. But it's been a little bit rough. But that's really what we're trying to do, is just try to get back to the students as quick as possible, encourage instructors to do that as well. But we're still really trying to get all the advisees in the program, all the students, actively interacting with each other. And it looks like one of the areas we're going to try is going to be like a Facebook page. That's coming up as soon as I have a little time to do that.
So with this, I know Tom is there's been a lot of talk about how we might enhance that. But I think with that, Tom, you're always short of time, like a lot of us. There's so many responsibilities in a job like this. Would you like to, I don't know if you covered this in your intro, but would you like to give a little breakdown, a sort of percentage of time of give people a sense of what you do in your job and a sense of how kind of percentage roughly at the time you spend on different aspects of the job?
Okay. Yeah, that's a good question. I didn't cover that. My job is technically 75% teaching and 25% extension. Extension covering, I guess I would call it outreach, public education things. And a little itty-bitty tiny bit of research. That's not official. I'm working on. And I would say probably I spend, I wouldn't say how many hours my week are, like yours long, but I would say probably 80% of my time is spent between teaching and advising. And of that, probably 40% of my time is advising. I spend a lot of time in emails. That's the primary route. The rest of that is spent teaching, preparing classes, even not just for the online program, but also for the undergraduate program. I'm also advising a few undergraduate students in the insect science program, and I don't spend a great deal of time doing that, but most of it goes to advising our master students and also advising our on-campus master students, not advising primarily as a co-advisor and then serving on committees. And
committees, like not graduate committees, but departmental and campus
well,
committees.
there's graduate committees, and I'm on a few of those. But then, yeah, there's also
the other meetings.
There's always meetings. So what I found out sucks up a lot of my time, probably about 5 hours a week, is service committees. I'm on a service committee for our college, which is an online advisory committee, and then I'm on the university curriculum committee, which sucks up. That's probably goes about 3 or 4 hours a week, looking at new classes. And we have classes that are called ACE, Achievement Centered Education. So we have to go through and reevaluate those classes and that's a 9-month academic sort of appointment to look at that. And that's I don't know how many years I'm stuck in that. I don't know how many years I get to serve on that particular committee. So I don't know if that explains, but my time is spent all over the place.
Well, and I think the point I wanted to make is, most people outside of an academic setting don't get a sense of what faculty do with their time. I always think it's funny when people say they're lazy, because I work, and I just do that a minimum 60 hours a week, usually way more than that. And so you look at the percentage, and Tom has a appointment where he is doing this advising and also running the program. Tom is very busy. And so, it's in his particular situation, it's not 100% time on the job is what he's doing, just sitting there at his desk, dealing with the master's program in terms of making it flow. And he's also teaching courses and doing other things. So, there are a lot of jobs in this field that for managing business program that are all that. So, there's a lot of advantage, disadvantage of what Tom's doing. The advantage is you get someone that knows all aspects and give you a really broad sense of how things work at an institution like this because of his appointment. So really good. He knows the research side, the teaching side, and does it. So I think that's really good in that sense. But it's also difficult too because, some of that time you would probably prefer to deal with these student issues that come up, but help them out and graduate and things like that. it's pretty tight on time. So anyway,
time on paperwork.
that's how it works. All right, so thank you, Tom, for that. What do you think the most challenging part is of managing programs or online courses in these programs?
The most challenging aspect of running a program like our online masters?
Yeah, and then at the course level. How about the program level and the course level?
At the program level, really, well, I think at both the program level and the course level, it's communication. I mean, one of the more difficult things I've had in the program level is I tend to be, and I've learned, I tend to be a little bit more laid back. Well, we'll get to that. No hurry, but I've learned you can't do that in this when the student responds and needs something, you got to get on that pretty immediately, and you have to have a lot of organization. There's a lot to keep track of for the students, and the students are responsible for some of that, but we need to work on that a little bit as well. And I think that goes into the teaching. The first online class that I ever did, I realized the face-to-face class, I could just walk in 5 minutes before I got to teach, and walk in and be fine. You can't do that with an online class. You actually have to be organized, and that's something I hadn't ever been before. So I think as far as running the program, it's a matter of committing time to students and getting back to them pretty rapidly. And as far as teaching, it's being organized.
Okay. Very good. Back to these last two questions is, how do you find time to advise this many students? How do you make that work?
It's really, I triage it to some extent. So if students don't hear back from me right away, it's not that I didn't see the message. I looked at it briefly and said that can wait. It gets flagged, and then when I have time later on in the week or on the weekends or in the evenings, then I can go back and start to go through the emails first thing in the morning.
And he ignores emails from people like me too, and he's really busy.
Just for a few weeks.
For a few weeks.
Yeah.
So, but that's it's part of the job. But I think it's not uncommon actually that give people multiple roles at the institution, because frankly, to hire a position like this, they have to get a lot of permissions. We're a state-funded institution, so that whole process for hiring people is it's, I wouldn't say a lot of bureaucracy, but it's set up so it has a lot of checks and balances, and money has to be there, and they just don't make money come out of thin air for these positions. So anyway, it takes time to do that, and so we're often doing a number of things in these roles.
Sometimes grant writing.
Grant writing, too. Yeah, grant writing. Tom, you hire some faculty adjuncts. So we've got a couple questions related to that. When you're hiring faculty, do you put an emphasis at all where they receive the degree online or in person?
No. Well, let me say a little bit about adjuncts. I mean, ideally, we would be hiring only people within the department to be teaching, or somebody within the university. But we cannot, we're a small department, so we cannot do that. So we really have to hire people from outside to teach the classes. Now, how they got their degree or what degree they have doesn't really matter. It needs to be a minimum of a master's degree. We do have one instructor that teaches medical entomology that has a master's from our program. And he also has a lot of experience, which makes him a really good instructor for medical entomology. But really, whether or not they're online or not, that doesn't matter. Now, that's as far as adjuncts for our program. I can't say from hiring within or some of our faculty positions here, anybody's ever had an online degree. But the highest online the only online degree they could have would be a master's degree. And why that doesn't limit you from getting a PhD, typically our online students don't go on for a PhD. We've had a few that have, however.
Yeah, and I think part of the reason why they wouldn't take a PhD online is from somebody who's done it, because we're in the sciences, and all those folks are hired, pretty much don't get hired here unless you do research. You might be able to pick up somebody that had was associate professor of practice, assistant professor of practice, that's sort of used called lecturer. Somebody that wasn't doing research as a part of their job, but pretty much all job lines now you have to do research to work towards tenure or a more permanent job situation here. So it's just how it is. I think it's more that situation than it is that the quality isn't very good. Would you agree?
Oh, the qualities, I have no difference in quality. It's just we hire on campus to, I mean, you have to have that research here.
Right.
Unless, like Doug said, we're hiring just somebody just to teach, like what do we call them now? Associate professors. Or
No, a professor of practice.
Yeah, thank you.
And they have professor of practice, and then associate professor of research, which is more the research line. People that don't do teaching extension work. And Tom and I both have split appointments. Tom is teaching extension.
Yep.
Mine is teaching extension. So that's pretty much how it is in most institutions. A lot of institutions don't have an extension program. So is there anything else you look at when you're hiring faculty for adjuncts?
For adjuncts?
Yeah.
Really, if they have experience in the class, I mean, we're sometimes a matter of trial, but I have hired people that I know, people that have come recommended to us, people that were teaching in the program as adjuncts before I started, like Lana.
Yeah.
A good example of that.
Right.
So we have, really, it's just a matter of, I really would prefer that they have experience, like Steve Robertson's a great example because Steve has experience in medical entomology in the military, so he's perfect. And even though his teaching credentials may or may not be there, that wasn't what I was worried about, but I liked was his experience. And so that's kind of what I'm after. Elena Pucci, who I worked with down in Florida, her experience is in evolution, ecology, population dynamics. So she was a really good choice for teaching the evolution class.
Very good. And, we've got a bunch of good resources here too on campus, and a lot of faculty have experience teaching online. So, if you don't know the field, it's a lot harder to teach a course than if you don't know distance teaching. I think because you can evolve with the other much faster than you can with if you don't know any of the content or any of the subject, it's just isn't going to happen.
You can adapt to online teaching, but you can content.
A lot harder. Yeah. So another couple questions that deal with advising. We have a student that sort of asked, what's the difference between online and face-to-face in your opinion? And we touched on a little bit of that. So we might have a student here that can come see you all the time. And then for those students that don't see you all the time, do you use any, and I know we do have students that come and visit you a few times during the program, just happen to be through town or whatever. How do you deal with that, I guess? And what sort of, do you use technology, first of all, to sort of reach those students, Skyping much, or is it all over the phone? What I consider more traditional ways of communication, email and phone, or does it vary?
It varies quite a bit. Now, I offer technology, so you can get a hold of me, we can Skype or some other method. It's up to you, and I'm willing to set the time up to do that. But typically, it's email and it's phone. Typically email. That's usually what's the most.
And you get hundreds of emails a week. I know that for a fact.
Yes.
How about phone calls? You get dozens in a week?
No, really, not even a dozen.
Okay. I talk to my students when I put the course. I always have them, and phone calls are difficult. I actually kind of hate phone calls, messages on my phone because I'm in and out of the office all the time. Yep. So I love doing phone calls for advising or talking to students in course if they send an email first, we can schedule it. Because I always feel bad if I miss the phone call, and I hate playing phone tag. I don't give my cell phone out, and it's not because I don't like you. Tom goes the same way, because the university doesn't pay for my phone, then I'm not going to give my phone out. If they paid to borrow that phone, I would be more than happy to share that number. And then you can stalk me all you want. But anyway.
Well, yeah, email and text messages are great because, like Doug said, we're not really in our office all that much. So if I'm sitting in a meeting and I get a text message or email, there's a chance that I'm so uninterested. Well, no, let me rephrase that. That I will take the time to reply to it that particular time. So, especially text messages, because
Tom, I'm interested in the meeting, not interested in you.
I was talking. If I'm not interested in meeting, I'm more interested in responding to the student. Not all the meetings we go to are very
engaging.
That's
the word you might use. Okay. How do you keep? In your courses that you teach? Let's do two things. For advising, how do you keep up with students with where they are in the program? And then within the course, how do you keep up with their keeping up in the course?
As far as students go, I really, I set out the guidelines and the checklist and hope that they keep up with what's required, such as when you get 18 credits done or so, you should do your memorandum courses. So that's put out. I try to put a big email out every semester saying, okay, here's the courses that we're offering next time for your registration. Here's some reminders. So I go through the advising reminders, and then new students get a checklist, and they're expected to kind of follow that. Doesn't always happen. So sometimes we get to near the end of their program, and they want to graduate, and they haven't done their MOC, and I haven't checked up on that. And that's really, it would help. It's helpful to have somebody that's dedicated just to tracking where the students are, somebody with a little bit more attention to detail, and it's been a goal of mine, and I keep trying to catch up to every semester, go through and update where every student is, how many semester or credits that they've completed, if they need to do the memorandum courses, when they think they might be graduating, things like that. So,
well, it seems like we have had more tools the last few years, right, for advising students, digital tools. And for undergraduates. Now for graduates, it's still a hard copy, right?
Yeah, it's still a hard copy.
So here we are in 2015. You think everything would be digitized, and we have this fancy system. But to be honest with you, those systems, one, are very expensive. Two, and not just the software, but to make it all work.
Mm-hmm. There's
a team of people that need to have work on this with our current systems, make them talk and keep them up to date. And so I think it's one of the challenges for Tom is just knowing you talk about the work, is keeping track of that paperwork. So not that I think Tom, one emphasizes not being neglective. It's the fact that everything's hard file still for this program. So it makes it difficult to keep track of that, but it's something to know. And I think that's certainly as you stay in this position longer, I'm sure eventually the software will catch up and allow Tom to sort of send a mass email to the 5 students that are at credit hour 30 this semester, so they know that you're close to graduation. So now you do some of that hard copy, but it takes a lot of work to do it. So
it's something that's proved to be a real challenge to keep up with it. That's why I kind of use the model of the students that we have. I would like to use the model of the on-campus students, which is we meet once a year and we talk about where you are in the program. But I'm reluctant because I'm thinking, okay, 120 students that are active, and then the ones that are inactive, meaning they haven't been taking classes for a while, even if they want to meet, even if we limit it to half an hour each, we're talking about a long time to meet with those students.
All right.
Because on-campus students will meet once a year as a committee, sometimes twice a year for maybe an hour.
Yeah.
And they'll show us what they've completed and where they are in the program. So they get a lot more one-on-one than the off-campus ones. Off-campus students really run on a motivation system, right? And they are busting their behinds to complete this degree.
Right.
And really, I feel like we throw them out with minimal direction and say, come back to us when you completed all these things. And so they're just trying to swim through the tide to get back to us, and they're completing the task along the way. And on the top of it, they're doing this with having families, working full-time, in all these other aspects of life that our on-campus students aren't necessarily engaged in. They may be engaged in family, but their job is going to school.
Let me parallel something though, too. I mean, if you're in this master's program or another program, something that's different about a graduate degree in general is students are expected to be more self-driven, even more than undergraduate, right? You're working towards becoming an independent researcher, independent expert in your field.
Right. And
so the burden typically in all graduate programs, on campus, online, is put on students to help manage that. Way more so. I think, though, however, we have graduate handbooks, which are 100, like ours is 140 pages, some crazy amount. It's huge. Most people don't read it. And faculty, a lot of times we make amendments to it that affect the next year batch of students. we vote on those sort of small changes in there. And I've read it through, but it's a lot to remember, and there's a lot of if a student does X, then he or she can do X, Y, and Z. Yeah. And that sort of language, it's not a legal document, but it's whatever's under that as far as understanding. And so I think the thing we do a poor job of is telling students, have you read that manual? And Tom does have checklists and things that he has, which is really helpful, sort of a simplified version for the students, which I think helps a lot, and does do those reminders. But it ultimately, at the end, even our traditional programs, it's very much up to the students to go out and seize that degree and be on top of things. So the students that I think do well in these programs are ones that are a little let me use a polite word here. What I'm thinking of are not aggressive, but maybe it is aggressive. Aggressive in terms of seeking that information out, asking questions, those sort of things. And not all students are that way. Personality differences. If you sort of just float, you're going to continue to float in a program like this. And some students want that. They have more important things in life, And a lot of our faculty think school should be the most important thing. It's whatever's going to get you to that next, I think, goal is the most important thing. And a lot of us don't follow that here even. Right. We work more than we do anything else. But that's, to me, that's sort of a disadvantage. But if you were here and you see me in the hallway every day, and I can say, where's that MOC? And you would feel guilty and ask me questions and be guilty in that. In the distance program, you're a long ways off, out there, wherever you live, and there's no necessarily motivation to go, oh, yeah, I need to talk to Tom again about that, Dr. Weissling again about that. Yeah, I'll have to send an email. Whereas you see me in the hallway or see Tom in the hallway, that just seems to happen more, I think, right?
Well, it does even amongst students. The students who sit in their grad room, which is just right next door here.
Complain about us.
Yeah, they complain about us, but then they'll say, hey, what are we supposed to do with the memorandum courses? What about the final exam report? When do we do that? So they talk a lot. So kind of the goal of doing this online community for our students is that you guys can get together and talk amongst yourselves about when you're supposed to be doing things. And if it happens.
Well, Facebook page would be good, I think, for that.
Yeah.
We
figured that would be the best one. So.
Yeah. I'd be sure we can make some survey to see how many students are on Facebook. It still surprises me the number of individuals that aren't when I did the extension talks.
Yeah, there's a lot of people aren't. I would just assume not, but I'm there.
You're there. I'm there too. Couple more questions, Tom. I have a couple questions. We have a couple questions about teaching a science-based course online and how you deal. So two aspects is, hey, how is a science course different, and what about lab courses?
Well, I don't think teaching any science-based course is really any different because I'm doing it face-to-face. I mean, I can take students out and we can look at things outside, but
well, things outside, like you teach a course called Natural History.
That's Insect ID and Natural History. That's one of the online ones.
That's the lab course, yeah.
Yeah, that's the only lab course what I would consider an only lab course, and that's it. It's a challenge, I think, for the students. It's not a challenge to teach because what I do is I'm showing images of the insects. Now, I taught this class face-to-face down in Florida for undergraduate students, and there's a great big advantage that they have is because I have drawers and drawers and drawers of insects I can pull out and plop down, and the students can look at the family. So if I'm covering Hymenoptera, I can put all the families that were covered in the lecture.
Now, we have students, most of our students are not actually in this program that take this course. So you have no idea what you're talking about.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So give them some background. I think two of our master's students.
Okay, yeah. Insect ID and Natural History is required.
Sorry, Tom.
No, that's
not the school Tom
no,
here.
But to get the background, because I forget about that. It is a course that, as entomologists, we figure there's about three key things that all students should know. How to identify an insect, how the endocrine system works. So we have an insect physiology class for that, and insect ecology. So those are considered the three, you can't see my fingers, three core courses. This TV thing is all back.
It is. That's thousands of them.
So there's three core courses that the students need to take. And so the Insect ID and Natural History is an attempt, and it works. to get students to identify insects. So if you're doing it face-to-face, it's real easy because you can see the insect in real life. You can see the key features we talked about. I can sit there and you go, what is it I'm looking for as the key feature? And I can point it to you using the microscope, and then you can see it. And that's a really big advantage face-to-face. Now we're doing it the same way online, only what you're doing is in lecture you're getting the digital images pointing out the features, and I go through them each family by each family, and we discuss the key features, and then of course the natural history, which is basically advanced biology, ecology. But you really don't get the lab component until you go out and collect insects, and then you're sitting there doing your identifications. And at that particular point, you have a microscope, hopefully, or at least a good magnification, hand lens, and if you have questions, then you would either contact me or the teaching assistant, Steve Spolner, and we would help you do the identification of your stuff. So there's a little bit of disconnect in students online, don't get to see how insects are pinned, how they're kept in drawers, things like that, that a student on campus gets to see, but trying to make up for that with incorporating more and more images every semester. So now Doug's been involved in trying to set up a lab in aquatics, right?
Yeah, a little bit. Dr. Danielson is sort of leading that, and I've sort of given advice and helping out with that. And it's taken a number of years, for a lot of reasons, not just logistical issues, but and so that hopefully be offered. But I think the idea with that is, I said, what do you, I think in terms of this lab stuff, in terms of behavioral objectives for students. So physically, that's the biggest challenge, is how do you get students, how do you do the physical aspect of the lab? Because you can do all kinds of, if you've got money to do it, do simulations online, you can recreate pictures, take photos for the insect lab, all kinds of things you can do in science. You can actually do modeling, it's a little hard, with technology, a lot of that online. So how do you do something that it requires, that sort of human element of physically doing something? So the aquatic course, you have to go out and sample. You have to play with things like mosquitoes and see how chemicals affect them. So I said to Steve, is why not we just, what are the key things you got students to be able to do physically? And so how that course is probably going to end up is sort of packaged experiments that you order and get sent to your house, or you buy the materials off Amazon. Mosquito larvae can be sourced, and we're going to do some temperature and chemical things there to look at how that affects aquatic insects that are really easy to do at home, relatively easy, and not inexpensive. So that's been the biggest challenge. So that'll eventually be offered, and hopefully I don't end up teaching that long term, because you don't want me for aquatics, trust me. But anyway.
Well, another class we got is like insect behavior that I'm teaching, and that's a class where observation is really helpful. So one of the there's 3 exercises that we do where the students go out and into a system getting insects. They can do it outside or in their home, because you can order insects online. You can go to a pet store and buy them. You can go collect them outside, bring them inside, manipulate them in some way. So set up 3 different experiments where you're doing the behavioral observation. So I think that's helpful too, and it's sort of what I would do in class. Only I wouldn't have you go do your own thing. We would work together to look at behavior. Now I'm going to be doing insect behavior this fall for undergraduates, and we're going to be doing some labs with cockroaches and some other insects looking at simple behaviors. And we could really, if you take a little bit of time, we could set up the online class and do the exact same thing. But I kind of like the thought of graduate students, your graduate students, going out and doing this on your own with minimal guidelines that I provide.
Yeah, and I think I think the big challenge here is for sort of high risk situations, both for the student and for what that training is going to provide them in the lab setting. That is going to be a little tougher online. There are online nursing classes that do have these labs, but I don't know how training would work for somebody like a surgeon. You could get the content in an online course, but I think that sort of practice of cutting into something, and although there are robotic systems where people learn that can do surgeries remotely, that the U.S. Army and other groups have invested heavily in that are fantastic. They actually do remote surgeries now with fine and the guys that are really good and women that are really good at this can do well. So I think that's coming eventually, which if you think about it, is really no different if that's a very sensitive system. I think they did a surgery, a guy from Denver to Chicago or something did the surgery, which is amazing to me. But, that's something, you have to kind of consider is the high risk for the aquatics. Well, we have to just talk to university lawyers. If we're asking students to go out and collect aquatic insects, what if they fall in and drowned? So how do we deal with that? So, those are the logistical issues that take a long time. So,
well, luckily in entomology, we're nothing like doing surgery. So we're really don't have classes here where we're manipulating anything. There's very few. Most of it's just identification sorts of things. Physiology would be the exception to that, and we don't have a solution for that.
There's an online genetics part to this, right? Is that a lab course or just genetics? Because Nick kind of runs it like a lab.
Yeah. I'm not quite sure how he runs that.
He runs it through a server.
Okay.
And the server does all the calculations. So it's lab-based exercises, but it's all because genetics is
a lot of data.
A lot of data. Kind of what work he does is that it's not taking samples necessarily. It's manipulating samples.
Yeah, it's managing large data sets.
Yes. And that's a lot. It's not a lab course, but I think he teaches basically like a lab. So anyway, I think that's the message. It sort of depends, and there are ways of doing this digitally. Tom, with our last couple of questions that are sort of tied together, and I think I'll just summarize this here. How do you, first of all, how is this distance program, set up students for jobs? And have you seen any difference in sort of the kind of jobs students get through a degree like this? And so is there any aftercare too, I guess, with that sort of set students up for jobs for our students that we provide different from like the Alumni Association provides and other career services? If you didn't know it, the university provides career students to students after they graduate too.
Most of our students are currently in a career and they're just trying to get our students, their goals are really varied. So we run from students that are trying just to get a promotion within where they're working, maybe agrochemical company that they got a bachelor's degree and they want to get a master's degree. It could be a teacher where they get a master's degree. So they're just looking to move up within the program that they're at. Some students are trying to get into the military, pest control, and they've been very successful at that.
Highly successful through our program.
And we have students that come here just to get that training. Once they get the degree, we had a story of a student that was sergeant, and she finished the degree, and it wasn't weeks afterwards they stripped her sergeant bars and put lieutenant bars, or sergeant stripes and put lieutenant bars on her.
And they didn't strip; they upgraded her.
Yeah, no, they literally ripped
they did.
right off her uniform and handed her the lieutenant bars, and off she went.
That's cool.
So she was suddenly commissioned, and it was a total surprise to her. So that's for the military aspect, it's a great, you get this degree and you're set for that.
And not to get aside of, but Tom, other thing is sort of not transparent here is Tom has had and built that relationship with the military for recruiting and things. And so Tom's put a lot of work in behind the scenes as a manager of this program to work with the U.S. military. They've come here and done videos, so sort of promotional, and has had some conversations to help really let them know that this is a degree and a worthy degree. And so that's something that you don't get out of like these questions, but Tom's done quite a bit of work behind the scenes to make that happen.
Yeah, you do a little bit of recruiting, I guess. Some of the other students that are actually seeking a career in entomology that haven't had one will go to, as far as I know, we've had good placement like USDA, APHIS is primarily.
Forest Service, so we're going to do the Forest
Service.
National Parks.
Yep, National Park Service.
Teachers, because I guess if you're a teacher, educator, you get a master's degree, you get that pay raise.
Extension educators, getting pay raise. So really, it varies. We don't really have a particular group that we have a lot of. It's just kind of all over the board. And then we have enthusiasts, which are, we have dentists, chemists, people that have no plan to change their career. They just want a degree in entomology.
Because they're fascinated with insects, which to me is fascinating. I hope someday I get to the point that I want to enrich myself through something.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll be another degree. I think I'm done.
No, I'm good.
Even MBA, I'm not going to do that. I'm done. So, it's sort of mind-blowing.
I don't have a good answer for that. We've never really had a reason to prepare students for getting a job. So, I mean, we prepare the whole time, but we've never done any extra work to say, okay, this is what you need.
Yeah, job placement.
Yeah, job placement. So students do a pretty good job of finding.
What about aftercare for students in terms of advising beyond their degree here?
That's pretty common, and I do get a lot of requests for recommendation. That was one of the questions somebody asked. How do I really know a person enough to write a recommendation letter? And it's a little bit of a difficult area. So first thing I do is I get to know their background, when they graduated, what their GPA was, talk to a few people if I can about that maybe had them in class if they remember them. So really what I'm looking for is the less I've heard from you probably is a good thing. You can hear from people that the more you hear from it's not so good, and then there's more you hear from it. It's really good. So it just depends on the student. But I would say since I've been here, there's only one student that I've written multiple letters for that hasn't found their particular niche at this moment.
It's really good.
Yeah, so I'd say we're doing pretty well.
Well, I know that's some of that's a question that students have sort of like after this, and I don't know if that student's in our program or not. You can look closely enough to see who that was, but yeah, I mean that's sort of the thing with any degree. I mean, I don't think I ever used the university to help me find a job. I mean, I kind of have those things lined up or developed after I finished or whatever. But I know those, like you said, those are there for our graduates, the career services, and they, you have to put a little effort into sort of going there or calling them up to get the lead. But those other things you don't forget is you guys are at a distance, but however, the campus is open to you. I mean, you're just like a student, like any other student here, so you can use those resources, and I'm sure you could pay fees for. You might already pay them for the rec center and those kind of things. I don't know. I'm not sure. I never thought of that, but I mean, so the facilities are here for you in terms of just like any other student. So as far as I know, so use them if you need to. And I always think like if you can get a cheap plane ticket or do a jump seat or whatever your situation is, you could get here, and if your job or family allows you, those are resources are here. We do see several students throughout the year that come by, and I usually get to meet 2 or 3 students a year that have taken my classes, which I think is always really cool, and I can talk to them a few minutes and get to know them. And
it helps if you let us know you're coming.
Yeah. Oh yeah. If you show up, we may not be here. We're in and out a lot.
That's happened
meetings
a few times.
Yeah, that's happened too. Yeah.
Oh, I'm so and so from your online program.
Oh gosh.
Great.
Yeah.
I was just off to a meeting.
Yeah. Yeah, we are in too many meetings. I would agree. So, well, I promised Tom that we keep this about 45 minutes today, which we've sort of accomplished, and we've gotten through almost all the questions. Tom, is there anything else you'd like to share that we haven't talked about?
No, I just would like to congratulate all of you that you're doing a magnificent job, because I think what it takes to get through an online program is a little bit more than an on-campus program, because you are balancing life, work, everything else that's going on, and it's so easy to come home and say, I don't want to deal with this right now, and put it off. And to be successful, you can't do that. So I think our students are incredibly motivated, and anybody doing this online degree, I think is really, you have my respect. I think it's just incredible. Even yesterday, I sent off a quiz for my ID Natural History course, and half an hour later, it's back from one of the students. So I'm going, how did you get this back so fast? And he goes, well, actually, I was sitting there at work, and when I usually do my class stuff, you must have a pretty unengaging job or something.
Or a job that allows that.
Some jobs
are into
that's
that.
true. Let me choose the proper words. Yeah, the job that allows for that. And he said, I actually saw you create the folder, and then
Oh,
start loading things into Blackboard.
So you're using Dropbox or something? Or
Yeah, I was using Blackboard.
Oh, that's amazing.
So yeah, he was just watching the evolution of posting the quiz online.
Yeah, that is sort of a little more scary. I used to, and then I used to off track once you get out of here, but used to really, and I think I should be more careful now, but when I post something, I would hide it until I even dumped into it. And now the computers work so fast, I kind of build as I go. And I've had students jump in there when things are, I know somebody's going to say, hey, that's all the stuff I have this week, and then 10 other things show up in that folder, and they mess it because I was working on it as it went. So
we usually, we want to hide it.
Yeah.
We got it loaded. But I figured it's Sunday afternoon, nobody's going to be on there.
Well, but you know how students work. So, well, anyway, definitely, I agree, Tom. I commend you. And Tom, you know, you're our last speaker for the semester, so we want to thank you so much for taking time. Today we have your seventh session, maybe 10th, 9th. We have 9 speakers this semester. A couple of people teamed up for different topics. So, you know, I think this is one that where students are definitely thinking about as sort of, you know, this course trying to give them all the perspectives of what it's like to be a part of a distance program. That's just not from the student side, but building the course and looking at distant sites and management of programs, adjuncting, all that kind of thing, teaching. And so you're a sort of last component we hadn't touched on. So definitely thank you. And you're our main lecture this week. So definitely, well, you know, I don't manage a program, so what am I going to lecture on necessarily, right?
I'm not sure I'm managing it.
Well, you are managing. So
I'm still learning.
Anyway, you can tell Tom's a good joker and, you know, it's fun to work with, but definitely thank you so much.
Yeah, sure.
All right, so make sure you look in Blackboard for the rest of the assignments. Thank you.